Episode 2, The Fallen. November 8th, 2025, Japan, Tokyo. Katsumi's house. Katsumi sits at her desk and types on her laptop. With his hand on the back of her chair, Ryu stands behind her and stares at the screen.
It's handy for us that they created this memorial website to honor all of the players who lost their lives in SAO.
They deserve so much more.
Silently, Katsumi keeps typing. Finally, she opens a long webpage with hundreds of photographs of deceased players.
At first, I thought it would be difficult to find the 4 we're looking for, but thankfully, it's organized by date of death. Plus, they've included pictures for each player.
I guess in this case, it's a good thing their faces are burned into my mind.
Katsumi keeps scrolling through the pictures.
There are so many.
Wait, stop. That girl. She's one of them.
Izumi Miyamoto. And you're sure?
Yes.
Okay.
Setting down her pen, Katsumi continues, scrolling slowly. Ryu points out 2 more players, and Katsumi adds their names to the sheet. Finally, Katsumi scrolls down to nearly the bottom of the page. Ryu stares intently at the picture of a black-haired boy with deep blue eyes.
That's him.
Kenji Kobayashi. The last one.
With a heavy sigh, Katsumi writes his name on the paper.
He was the last player I killed in SAO and IRL. That would have been you, if the game hadn't ended.
Katsumi whirls around in her chair and grabs his hand.
But it did. I'm alive, Ryu. There's no use dwelling on the what-ifs.
Gently, Ryu pulls away and moves to sit on her bed.
So, how far away are they all?
Well, thankfully, all of them are from Japan. We may just have to travel some. I'll start working on tracking down their addresses. First up, Izumi Miyamoto.
November 16th, 2025, Japan, Kawasaki, subway station. Ryu and Katsumi step off the subway and walk towards the exit of the station.
At least this first family isn't that far away. Just a short subway ride away.
Deep in thought, Ryu stares forward.
Ryu?
How will I know what to say?
Even though it will be painful, the truth is always the best choice. I'm sure they'll appreciate your honesty. Besides, I think it'll be clear that you never intended to hurt anyone, and how much you regret what happened.
Ryu nods but remains silent. The 2 of them continue on down the road of Kawasaki. Eventually they stop in front of a small house.
Well, this is it. Are you ready?
No, but this is something I need to do.
Ryu approaches the door with Katsumi close behind. With a long sigh, Ryu reaches out and rings the bell. Ryu holds his breath until a woman with dark, red hair slides open the door a few moments later.
Hello, Mrs. Miyamoto?
Yes? Can I help you?
Well, I'm Ryu, and this is Katsumi.
Hello.
And
We're both players in Sword Art Online. We understand that your daughter Izumi was as well?
A mournful expression falls over the woman's face.
Yes, she was.
We're very sorry for your loss.
Please, won't you both come in?
Each with a slight bow of thanks, Katsumi and Ryu step into the house. Mrs. Miyamoto leads them to a small sitting area. No one sits.
Would either of you care for something to drink?
Oh, no, thank you.
Ryu glances over at a framed picture on the wall of Mrs. Miyamoto, with a dark-haired man and 2 red-haired children. A boy with spiky orange hair and a muscular build has his arm around Izumi, who Ryu recognizes instantly. Just then, the same tall, dark-haired man from the photo enters the room.
Darling, have you seen my phone? Oh, I'm sorry. I didn't realize we had company.
Honey, this is Ryu and Katsumi. They were both in that game with Izumi.
Ah, I see.
A deafening silence fills the room.
Did either of you interact with our Izumi?
Actually, Mr. and Mrs. Miyamoto, there's something I need to tell you both. You see, I'm the reason Izumi never made it out of SAO.
What do you mean?
Well, there was this rare item, a weapon that messed with my head during the game. It made me do things I wouldn't normally do, like hurt those closest to me. Because of this weapon, I attacked and killed a few players, your daughter included.
Mr. and Mrs. Miyamoto gasp and exchange glances. They are both too shocked to speak.
Mr. and Mrs. Miyamoto, you have to understand. Ryu would have never hurt your daughter if it hadn't have been for that cursed weapon. He's felt nothing but guilt and agony over what he did.
Did she suffer?
If she felt any pain, it was over quickly.
Oh, Izumi.
Mr. Miyamoto wraps his arms around his wife as she cries into his chest.
I'm sure this was difficult for you, but we are glad to know the truth. However, I think it'd be best if you both left now.
Of course. Thank you for your time.
Katsumi starts to leave, but Ryu lingers for a moment longer. His eyes grow wide when he sees an image of Izumi standing next to her parents.
I'm sorry. Truly.
With a quick, respectful bow, Ryu follows Katsumi and exits the house. They move to the street. Numb, Ryu stands silently looking down. Katsumi gently touches his arm.
Ryu, are you...
What's the next one?
What?
The next victim on the list.
It's Takashi Maki and Chiba.
Fine. Let's go.
But Ryu, don't you want to talk about...
No. I just want to focus on the next family.
If you keep bottling up your emotions like this...
Ryu stops walking suddenly and stares at the ground.
I can't, Kat. If I let myself feel everything that's happening, I'm afraid I'll break.
At some point, though, you'll have to take it all in.
Not until I visit the rest of the families.
In that case, if you do start to break, I'll be right there to help pick up the pieces.
Ryu looks up and sees the ghost players, except for Izumi, standing ahead on the street. They all stare at him.
Who knows if there will even be pieces of me left by the end of this.
December 6th, 2025, Japan, Chiba. Ryu and Katsumi stand in front of the door to a small apartment.
This should be the last known residence of Takashi Maki.
Glancing to the side, Ryu's heart quickens when he sees Takashi's ghost standing at the end of the long platform.
We're in the right place.
Narrowing his eyes, Ryu reaches up and knocks on the door. Movement is heard within the apartment, and a moment later, a brown-haired girl in her 20s opens the door.
Yeah?
Hello, I'm Katsumi and this is Ryu.
Look, if you're here to sell me some school fundraiser, I'm not interested.
That's not why we're here.
We understand that Takashi Maki used to live here?
Yeah, he did. That is, until he went and got himself killed in some psycho video game. Of course, I don't know why I'm surprised. He always paid way more attention to those blasted games than me. I mean, we only lived together for crying out loud. Sure, we weren't married, but still.
Katsumi and Ryu exchange glances.
Listen, about that video game, Ryu and I were also trapped there.
Huh. So you lot are as cracked as Taka was. Why come to me, though?
To tell you how Takashi died.
Haruka raises an eyebrow, but says nothing.
There was a powerful weapon in the game that drove me to insanity, and as a result, I was the one who murdered Takashi in game.
You serious?
Yes.
So what you're saying is that a schoolboy like you slaughtered my boyfriend in some whacked out death game?
Silently, Ryu looks down.
Go figure.
You're not upset?
Listen, kid, it was a year ago, and before that, Taka was stuck in that video game coma for 2 years. I've moved on. Sure, I miss Taka now and then, but he would have wanted me to look ahead, not behind. Sounds to me like you need to do the same.
Ryu's mouth opens slightly as he stares at her in disbelief.
Anyway, I've gotta go. Lunch is burning as we speak. Thanks for, well, the truth, I guess.
Haruka closes the door, leaving Ryu and Katsumi stunned.
Well, that was unexpected.
Without a word, Ryu glances over to where Takashi had been standing. He's nowhere to be seen.
So, that's how it is.
December 19th, 2025, Japan, Ayame. Ryu and Katsumi stand uneasily on the snow-covered porch of a shabby house with a middle-aged man.
So, what you're saying is that you attacked and murdered my daughter?
I'm saying that I wasn't fully in control of my actions. I couldn't stop myself.
From killing my daughter, my hyena!
Please, sir, I'm trying to make amends.
Some things are unforgivable.
Mr. Nakamura suddenly punches Ryu hard across the face, sending him off of the porch and into the snow below.
Ryu!
You may be just a kid, but you're a monster.
Ryu's eyes grow wide with terror as his mind flashes back to being a ravaging dragon.
You're the reason my little girl is gone.
The real reason your daughter is gone is because of a man named Akihiko Kayaba. He's the one who created SAO and trapped all of us in his virtual reality. He's the one who made the weapon that consumed Ryu's mind and caused him to attack Hina. If you're gonna blame someone, blame Kayaba.
Okay, I'm at fault.
Ryu.
Wincing from his bleeding cheek, Ryu slowly sits up.
I may not have wanted to kill your daughter, but I did. It happened, and it's something I'm going to have to live with for the rest of my life. I can see now that asking for your forgiveness is pointless. All I can do is express my infinite guilt and sincere apology.
Mr. Nakamura lowers his head and tightens his hands into fists.
Get off the property.
With that, Mr. Nakamura turns, enters his house, and slams the door behind him. Breathing deeply, Ryu stares down at the ground as blood trickles from the wound on his cheek.
I'm a fool. There's no way I can make up for what I've done.
Just then, a hand reaches out to Ryu with a heavy exhale. Ryu grabs the hand and looks up, expecting to see Katsumi. Instead, he finds Hina holding his hand and smiling down at him. Blinking in surprise, Ryu is quickly pulled up by her. Turning to her, Ryu's eyes grow wide as he realizes Katsumi is holding his hand and looking at him with concerned eyes.
Are you okay, Ryu?
Searching for Hina, Ryu looks all around. Ryu looks all around frantically.
Ryu, what's wrong?
She's gone. We should go.
Ryu starts to move towards the street.
Alright, but are you okay? Your cheek is still bleeding.
I'm alright. I just want to get out of here.
Okay, it'll be good to be home after all this.
December 20th, 2025, Japan, Koga, bus. With a bandage on his cheek, Ryu slouches in a seat next to Katsumi. As she talks on the phone, they are riding on a crowded bus.
Yeah, we're heading back now. Well, the last family lives in Shibuya, so it's not too far from home. Oh, he's doing okay. Each family reacts in their own way. Some have been harder than others. Yeah, I will. Thanks, Saki. I'll talk to you later.
With a sigh, Katsumi hangs up and shoves her phone in her bag. She turns to Ryu, who simply stares forward, in a daze. Gently, Katsumi leans her head on his shoulder. They sit in silence for several minutes.
They're disappearing.
What?
The 4 players who were shrouding my mind. They're disappearing one by one as we go.
Maybe talking with their families is finally helping you bring closure to each of their deaths.
Maybe.
You're so incredibly brave to be doing this. And now, there's only one left. Kenji Kobayashi.
Feeling a dark presence beside him, in the aisle of the bus, Ryu doesn't need to look to know that it's the ghost of Kenji standing next to him.
One left.
December 28th, 2025, Japan, Shibuya. In silence, Ryu and Katsumi walk down an empty street in Shibuya. Eventually, they stop in front of a tall house.
This is it.
Neither of them move.
This one's going to be the hardest.
Kenji. He's the one that I saw when I found you that day.
Right before I finished him off, he asked me why I was doing it. I said, why not?
Ryu looks down and tightens his hands into fists. Gently, Katsumi sets her hand on his shoulder.
That wasn't you, Ryu. That was the Dragonheart blade distorting your mind.
Either way, I'm still responsible.
With a short exhale, Ryu strides forward and steps into the wide wooden porch. Katsumi follows at his side. As Ryu reaches forward to ring the bell, he gasps when he sees blood covering and dripping from his hand. Ryu takes a step back and turns to the side. His eyes grow wide as Kenji stands a few feet away from him, staring at him. His armor is soaked in blood.
Ryu?
Swallowing, Ryu turns back to Katsumi, unable to speak. He looks down at his hand again, which appears to be clean now.
It's nothing.
Glancing over at where Kenji was, Ryu sighs when he doesn't see him. A moment later, a dark-haired man opens the door.
Hello.
Ryu goes to speak, but no words come out.
Mr. Kobayashi? My name is Katsumi, and this is Ryu. We're here to talk to you about Sword Art Online and your son Kenji. Ryu and I were both trapped in that game with him.
Ryu looks down in silence.
Oh, I see. Why don't you both come in?
Thank you.
Katsumi and Ryu both bow respectively as they enter the home. Mr. Kobayashi slides the door shut behind them and leads them into a spacious living area.
Sora, we have guests. Please, have a seat.
Ryu turns and sees Kenji sitting on the couch. Both him and the couch are bathed in blood.
I'd rather stand.
Very well.
Just then, a beautiful brown-haired woman with striking blue eyes enters the room.
Oh, hello?
This is Katsumi and Ryo. They were trapped in that virtual game with Kenji.
Oh dear. Did you happen to see Kenji at all?
Well, actually...
I have something to tell you both.
Behind Mr. and Mrs. Kobayashi, Ryu can see Kenji standing between them and staring hard at Ryu.
Your son fought bravely in SAO. He was a true warrior, all the way to the end. I know because I'm the one who killed him.
Mr. and Mrs. Kobayashi gasp and stare back at Ryu with wide eyes. They remain silent. Quivering, Ryu feels a flood of emotions fall over him. To keep from breaking completely, Ryu stares down at the floor.
I couldn't stop myself. I couldn't control the weapon I had taken. You have to understand, the sword I was using, it was cursed. It overwhelmed me with an endless craving for power.
Looking up, Ryu sees Kenji step forward past his parents and narrow his eyes at him. Blood oozes from his chest. Gasping for air, Ryu falls to his knees and onto his hands. All of Ryu's pent-up emotions overflow inside of him all at once, tears streaming down his face, and he falls to the floor.
I didn't mean to kill him. I didn't want to, but I couldn't help it. I knew very well when I stabbed him through the heart with my blade that he would die in real life. I knew that, and still, I was weak. I couldn't control the immense power of the Dragonheart blade. That blasted weapon! It even made me attack and kill in-game the only girl I'll ever love. The only reason she's standing here right now is because the game ended. And now her physical strength is forever weakened. Because of me. All of this pain and hurt is because of me. I'm a monster! A monster!
Ryu stops when he feels warm arms wrapped tightly around him. Turning, Ryu gasps when he realizes Mrs. Kobayashi is the one bending down and hugging him. She looks at him with tear-filled eyes and a mournful smile. Looking up, Ryu blinks in shock as Mr. Kobayashi holds out his hand to him. Hesitantly, Ryu takes his hand. Mrs. Kobayashi moves back and stands as Mr. Kobayashi helps Ryu to his feet.
It's okay, dear. It's okay.
How could you say that? After what I did to your son?
The fact that you came here today and admitted what you did shows that you are clearly not a monster. Far from it. It's as you said, you didn't ask to be trapped in that death game. You didn't deserve to be controlled by a cursed sword. You didn't mean to kill Kenji.
Ryu's heavy tears continue to stream down his face as Mr. Kobayashi places his hands on Ryu's shoulders.
The past cannot be undone. You will never stop loving or missing Kenji, but you, dear boy, need to stop wallowing in guilt and shame. Instead, you should go on living. Enjoy life. Live in honor of Kenji and all of the other players who died because of SAO. It's time for you to look to the future, not dwell in the past.
Mr. Kobayashi lowers his arms as Ryu wipes away his tears.
I don't know what to say.
Don't say anything. Just let go of the sorrow and live your life. Carry on the legacy of the fallen players.
Ryu looks back and forth between Mr. and Mrs. Kobayashi. He glances over at Katsumi, who smiles sweetly at him. Turning back to Kenji's parents, Ryu's eyes grow wide when he sees Kenji standing in the background, with no blood on him. A huge smile beams on his face.
Thank you.
We truly appreciate you coming here today and opening up like this.
Please take care, both of you.
We will. Thank you both.
Ryu and Katsumi step onto the porch and move to the sidewalk. They give a small wave back to Mr. and Mrs. Kobayashi as they slide the door shut. As soon as the door shuts, Ryu lets out a heavy sigh and turns to Katsumi to smile.
I feel as though a great weight has been lifted.
I'm glad. That must have been very difficult.
Gently, Ryu pulls Katsumi into a warm hug.
I never really thanked you for helping me through this. I couldn't have done it without you. You truly are the greatest best friend and girlfriend a guy could ask for.
Well, you're worth it. Besides, we both know who really deserves the praise.
Very true.
Ryu looks down and studies the empty street. He smiles when he doesn't see any horrific visions or feel any haunting presences.
I think it's finally over.
Katsumi pulls out of their embrace with a grin on her face.
And now we can do what they said and enjoy life, living in honor of those who have fallen.
Sounds good to me.
Katsumi turns and starts hobbling down the street. Ryu starts to follow but stops to take one last look back at the Kobayashi house. His mouth opens slightly when he sees a dark-haired, blue-eyed figure watching him from an upstairs window of the house.
Kenji?
Narrowing his eyes, Ryu realizes it's actually a teenage girl with long black hair and blue eyes. She glares down at him for a few seconds before closing the curtains.
Ryu, are you coming?
Yeah. I'm coming.
I'm sure the others will be glad to have us back in Alpine.
Right. It'll be good to get back into the rhythm of things again. After finally closing the SAO chapter of our lives.
January 5th, 2016. January 5th, 2026. Japan, Tokyo. Ryu's house. With a smile on his face, Ryu dashes out the front door of his house.
Another restful night. Nightmare free.
He hops off the porch and moves towards the cherry blossom tree.
Maybe for once I'll actually be on time for Cat.
Katsumi is nowhere to be seen in the stone courtyard between their houses.
That's odd. Cat is never late.
With furrowed brows, Ryu walks over to her house and rings the doorbell. It takes a few moments before Katsumi's father finally opens the door.
Ryu. Have you seen Katsumi anywhere?
I was gonna ask you the same thing.
Shiro, is that the police?
Mrs. Nakano appears beside Mr. Nakano. It seems as though she's been crying.
The police? What's going on? Where's Cat?
We don't know.
She was gone when we woke up. Your mother and Saki's parents both said they haven't seen her.
How do you know she didn't just go out somewhere?
Katsumi always tells us where she's going. Besides, she left this behind.
Mrs. Nakano pulls out Katsumi's cane, causing Ryu's mouth to drop.
The lock on the door has been tampered with. We think Katsumi has been kidnapped.
Hysterical with tears, Mrs. Nakano cries into her husband's chest as he holds her tightly. Speechless, Ryu's eyes expand with shock.
Cat is gone?